I am the head of community management at an organization called the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform. We're exactly as we sound, a Geneva-based platform, a network of professionals who work in different topics on peacebuilding. And for the past couple of years, we've been devoting quite a lot of energy to the intersection of environment, climate, conflict, and peace, or environmental peacebuilding. We have an absolutely jam-packed opening plenary today with high-level speakers, project launches, including the launch of the white paper on the future of environmental peacebuilding and more. But before we get there, and as people are filling in, we already have, I see, 160 participants in the room. I wanted to just share a couple of those fun Zoom housekeeping reminders. So interpretation is available for this session. There are instructions going into the chat in Spanish and in French. You can just click on the globe interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen. And we want to thank the World Bank and Peace Nexus Foundation for making interpretation possible for this and other sessions. We also want to just remind you of the code of conduct. We're here as an online community. So as a reminder, harassment in every form is unacceptable. So if you witness or are subjected to unacceptable behavior in this session or in other sessions throughout the conference, we've placed a harassment policy in the chat, which also has contact information and instructions on what to do. And finally, because my job is a little bit of stage managing, I also want to publicly remind all of our speakers today to try and stick to your time allotments. I will awkwardly hop on and interrupt you where necessary. So today, I know that we all wish that we could be together in person. The decision was made just a couple of months ago to move to a virtual format, and Zoom fatigue has set in a very real way, but I wanted to invite us all to make an effort, both today and this week, to invest our energy in connecting with one another. My job at the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform is dedicated to building connection online among professionals in environmental peacebuilding. And the secret I have found is for each person to show up fully and to participate. So please fill the chat today. Let's have a second plenary happening over there. You can introduce yourself, share stories, share links, ask questions, answer questions. We are a veritable community, so let's act like it. Without further ado, I will stop talking and we can dive in. Our first speaker can be none other than the president himself of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association, Carl Bruch. He's also director of international programs at the Environmental Law Institute. And the chances are, if you've read literature on environmental peacebuilding, you've read his work. You can learn more about him from the link in the chat. So Carl, let's get you up here and spotlighted. Can you tell us, what is the Environmental Peacebuilding Association? Why are we gathered here? And what's happened over the past 3 years to get us here today? Over to you.
Thank you very much. It's amazing to be here, and I have been loving the chat. A lot of enthusiasm that I so wish we were able to do in person in Geneva, but under the circumstances, very, very happy to be here with all of you. Very briefly, and I will share my screen here. The Environmental Peacebuilding is the leading forum that brings together researchers, practitioners, decision makers, students, and others working on environment, conflict, and peace. And we seek to foster knowledge exchange, build capacity, and strengthen relationships. This conference is one of the main ways we do that. We currently have, this morning it said 449 individual members, and we've had a lot of people join literally overnight. So we are now over 450 members and 23 institutions from 72 countries, and it continues to grow. This is after less than 4 years of operation. So we're very excited by how it's been growing. A lot of our work is done through interest groups, and you'll see here a picture of people convening at the first conference and talking particularly about the about big data and frontier technologies. We have 10 different interest groups, and they do a lot of things to mentor, to share experiences, to organize panels and events, including sessions here. And some of them are developing knowledge products, and we'll talk about those more later. We have the Environmental Peacebuilding Knowledge Platform, and also on gender, natural resources, climate, and peace, a community of practice of more than 4,200 people, a MOOC. There's a lot going on with an amazing team of about 20 that makes this all work on a daily basis. Our first conference was in Irvine, California, and we had 250 people from 40 countries. Just by way of comparison, we have over 380 speakers at this conference. So there's been incredible growth in the 2.5, not even 2.5 years since our first conference, and the enthusiasm. The conference featured a number of themes, one of which was Colombia. And last year, we held a big conference for Colombia, virtually in Colombia, where we brought environmental peace building expertise and ideas to the country, and had about 700 people engaged as part of the road from Irvine to Geneva. And this was one of 40 different events that we held on the road to Geneva, to where we are today. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. We have a video on the road to Geneva, but that was is important to us because it was an inclusive process to really keep people engaged. As we're all trapped at home with COVID, we're still connecting with one another, learning, and connecting with new people. I would like to thank quickly the organizing committee, which has worked tirelessly for a year and a half, pulling this together, weekly meetings and a lot of late nights. So really want to acknowledge the organizing committee. None of this would be possible without the core team. These are the people who, this is not an hour meeting a week. This is hours and hours each week. And you've probably seen a lot of their names on your emails. And we are so incredibly grateful for their leadership and their commitment. We also have an amazing team of technical support who are helping to run each of the sessions. And I want to acknowledge them. And the scientific committee, which reviewed abstracts, helped us to decide the themes for the conference, helped us to really shape the functionality of the conference. And a lot of these individuals represent interest groups of the association. And finally, none of this would be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. And would like to particularly thank the Graduate Institute for the partnership and the commitment, Geneva Peacebuilding Platform, UN Environment Program, the Environmental Change and Security Program at the Wilson Center, the World Bank. As Annika noted, the World Bank and Peace Nexus Foundation have provided support for interpretation, as well as for other features of the conference. The Nelson S. Talbot Foundation, the Martin Dickinson Charitable Fund, the U.S. Institute of Peace, and an anonymous donor. And with that, thank you.
Perfect timing, Carl. Thank you so much. It's really special to see so many faces there. And now I see we have nearly 250 participants on this Zoom, and I'm loving the chat activity. It is only fitting that we now turn to our co-hosts of the conference at the Graduate Institute of International and Development Studies in Geneva. Marie-Laure Salle has been the director of the Graduate Institute since September 2020. Before joining the Institute, she was Dean of the School of Management and Innovation at Sciences Po Paris, a school she launched in 2016. Marie-Laure, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to this large community we have here online. Why is Geneva the right location for this conversation? What does Geneva have to offer and to gain?
Thank you so much, Annika. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, because as I can see from the chat, indeed, we are covering a big part of the world. So it's really a great pleasure and a great honor for me to be able to say a few words today for the second edition of the International Conference on Environmental Peacebuilding. And we are very proud at the Geneva Graduate Institute to be co-organizing this conference with the Environmental Peacebuilding Organization. So thank you very much for this partnership, Carl, indeed. Let me start by a few words of thanks. So beyond you, Carl, for your big thank you to you and to your organization for the continued leadership in environmental peacebuilding. Thank you also to all organizations that are today being present and represented on the first panels of this opening ceremony, the UNEP, Geneva Water Hub, Geneva Environmental Network, the Peace Texas Foundation, as well as the Geneva Peacebuilding Platform and its 5 partner organizations, all of which are obviously close close partners of the Geneva Graduate Institute. Let me also express again heartfelt thanks to the organizing committee, which has already been mentioned by Carl. And last but not least, I would also like to thank our team at the Institute for all the work they've done in preparation for this conference. Akim Venman, first and foremost, who's been with or on the organizing committee, but is also beyond his leadership in the Peace Nexus, is also now the Director of Strategic Partnership at the Graduate Institute. Lena Menge, who plays an important coordinating role for all our events and all our technical and events teams that have made such an hybrid event possible. When I looked at your program and at what the community of environmental peacebuilding has been doing over the last 3 decades, it's quite clear that we are reaching a critical and more complex phase of action. In fact, I recognize there the broader trend that has characterized the evolution of our common perspective, and I include myself in that, having been very attentive to those issues on the environmental challenge. There have been early whistleblowers on the environment and its challenges for a very long time. In fact, they emerged together with early industrial modernity. But for many years, they've been either unheard, silenced, or disregarded. Things started to change somewhat late, in fact, in the 1990s, as we know. Then finally, we started to understand how environmental degradation and associated resource scarcity was not only going to be an economic challenge, but also a social, political, and geopolitical one. We finally acknowledged that environment and peace were, in a sense, connected in a double loop causality way. Environmental degradation fuels conflict dynamics and threatens peace, while on the other hand, working together on environmental challenges could be a peace-sustaining or peace-developing mechanism through the positive dynamics of cooperation. By the late 2000s, I understand that a new wave of research and practice has been defining your intellectual and practitioner community with a focus on post-conflict settings. How do we reconstruct war-torn regions with what I would like to call environmental sustainability and resilience at the core? Today, it seems to me the challenge remains the same. Without sustainability, there will be no equity and no peace. This triangle, by the way, and this is to get at your question, Annika, I didn't forget it, of this triangle of sustainability and equity for peace is the new vision, the new compass of our institute, the Geneva Graduate Institute. This compass we co-constructed last year through the mobilization of our multiple stakeholders. Hence, all peace building needs to be environmental, I would say, and I would add also social. But what we understand today is the complexity of interconnected dynamics and actors, and hence the multiple and sometimes unexpected potential obstacles, but also on the other hand, the positive reinforcement that can come from acting where we would not have thought about acting before. Peace building, we know that, is about the end of military conflicts, but it is also about a complex nexus that has economic, social, educational, health, and certainly, last but not least, environmental dimensions. Peace building is local, but it is also fundamentally regional, but also inter and transnational. And that's another reason why Geneva is indeed important. Here again, with a complex nexus of actors, issues, and dynamics of at the same time competition and interdependencies. Placing the environment at the core has never been as urgent and as necessary as today, And this is as true of peace building and conflict prevention as it can be of trade, of industrial production, of business regulation, of global public health, of education, and let me add, of our handling of the digital revolution as well. So the work of your community is therefore not only important and key for the major challenge of peace building and conflict prevention, I would say that it is symbolic of the broader challenges of our time and can help us push forward this environmental at the core, quote unquote, imperative into all other necessary spheres of action. And here again, I think that Geneva is key. As we are embracing this complexity, therefore, we need to enlarge our conversations and connect with discussions in other fields. We need also to enlarge our understanding of inter and transdisciplinarity as we approach the environmental challenge as essentially what Marcel Mauss called a total social fact. The white paper on the future of environmental peace building is an impressive testament to the energy and the community that exists today at the service of the kind of intellectual integration that we need. And it shows that there's not a new nexus shaping up that brings together environment, climate, conflict, and peace. This ECCP nexus, if you'll pardon this acronym, illustrates the importance of new connections in shaping understandings and finding solutions by leveraging disciplines, sectors, competencies, and institutions. And I would add, as I suggested before, trade, health, education, and the digital challenge, at least, are all not too far. And there are probably further useful links and connections that could be created there. And again, this is really, Geneva for that is a wonderful place. Building communities through transdisciplinarity and cross sectors is at the heart of how we operationalize our vision and understand our mission at the Geneva Graduate Institute. As a pioneer in the exploration of global issues, we were born in 1927 in the follow-up to the setting up of the League of Nations. We define ourselves as a bridge builder, opening creative spaces where diverse communities can come together to co-construct the understanding and foster the engagement that is necessary to address the key issue of today. And as underscored here, sustainability in the broad sense, environmental, but also social, undergirds all challenges we are having to face in our contemporary world. And this sustainability challenge is multi-layered. It is very local on the one hand, but it is also, and very much so, a global transnational challenge. The key is to acknowledge our collective interdependencies, both as we face those challenges and as we attempt to reinvent solutions. Thanks to all of you for the important work you're doing. It is right there at the intersection of those interdependencies. And I wish all of you very inspiring sets of discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those remarks and for giving us that sort of sense of place. Even though we're here digitally, it is important to sort of ground. So now that we're a bit grounded, let's actually take a closer look at that road to Geneva that Carl mentioned and celebrate the fact that we are, albeit digitally, again, here together. The road to Geneva, as the video we are about to show describes, was a series of events and conversations held online between the conference in 2019 and now. A group of 110 young professionals from 39 different countries called the Young Rapporteurs also accompanied that process and did an incredible job. Some of those rapporteurs have put together a map of their learnings, experiences, and projects, and they wanted me to invite you to contribute your own story about environmental peace building scholarship, practice, and potential. And Shayla's just put that link in the chat for you. So let's watch the video. We're going to try our first technological feat, which is to share a video online. And then you can make sure you go to that link as well and add your own reflections to the map. Let's roll the video, Shayla, if we can. Always a finger cross moment.
In the lead up to the second International Conference on Environmental Peacebuilding, the Environmental Peacebuilding Association embarked upon a series of events entitled The Road to Geneva. The Road to Geneva featured regional, national, and thematic events stretching from August 2020 to November 2021. These events engaged people from around the world to discuss salient environmental peacebuilding questions, explore intersectionality, and highlight the experiences of impacted communities. From August 2020 to the end of 2021, upwards of 40 events took place, hosted by a wide range of organizations, including the Food and Agricultural Organization of the UN, Global Green Growth Institute, Conflict and Environment Observatory, Geneva Water Hub, and the International Association of Genocide Scholars, as well as many of NPACS's interest groups. In parallel with these events, the association and our partners also developed a number of initiatives that advanced environmental peacebuilding in distinct ways and engaged a range of actors, from artists to practitioners and researchers. These initiatives are: we are very proud to have this dialogue, which has shaped the agenda and current speaker list.
The second International Conference on Environmental Peacebuilding features more than 350 speakers from over 60 different countries and territories on more than 75 panels and roundtables.
The dialogue we had on the road to Geneva will continue at the conference and beyond. We look forward to working with you to make the environment a cause for peace rather than conflict.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And a round of applause. That video will be available on social media, by the way, in case you want to relive the magic. And don't forget to engage with that map from our young repertoires. But for now, let's make a bit of a transition into the meat, or I guess the vegetarian meat of our conversation today. We'll hear from our esteemed opening speaker and then transition into a bit of a panel. I remind you that you are welcome as you are to continue to treat that chat box as a second sort of written plenary venue, and we'd sincerely like to hear from you. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speaker to deliver opening remarks. Robert Jenkins is the assistant to the administrator for the Bureau of Conflict Prevention and Stabilization at the United States Agency for International Development, or because in Geneva we love acronyms, USAID. Rob is a career member of the Senior Executive Service and has been with USAID since 1998. Previously, he worked with World Vision International in Southern Sudan and Sierra Leone. Now, Rob, welcome, first of all. Why must we discuss peace in the age of climate security? What are the key challenges and opportunities that you see? And if I may, I guess, perhaps more basically, why does a development institution think about peace and security? Over to you.
Well, thank you, Annika, very much. I'll try to not speak too quickly and not talk too long at the same time. You put some parameters on it, but it's just thank you to all the organizers for the invitation to speak today. And it's great to see almost 300 people from, wow, all around the globe, focused for, two really important things: conflict and peace building. This conference is busy, this session is busy, so I'll try to be brief, but I want to share a few thoughts and answers to your question and what it looks like from my post here in Washington. I attend a lot of conferences, I speak a lot, and I usually am pretty comfortable talking to like-minded colleagues. I'll admit, when this invitation came, I got a little bit anxious. I'm not used to talking about climate very much. I'm not used to talking about the environment with a whole bunch of professional environmental peace builders. Then I realized that my excitement to join this conversation and the excitement mixed with my worry about not knowing as much as I should pointed out an important truth, is that at least at USAID, we've been too slow to draw together environment and peace building. And now we have a lot of work to do to make up for lost time. So my insecurities aside, I very much welcome the opportunity, especially now that my boss, Administrator Samantha Power, has made it very clear that climate change is going to be and must be part of everything our agency does, and that includes our work on conflict. So I've worked in this peace building, conflict prevention, stabilization, call it whatever you want field for decades. When I was in Sierra Leone in the 1990s, working there during the Civil War, before that, working in South Sudan, we had many ways that we would analyze and many theories about conflict. The theories about how they broke out, why they continued, hopefully how we could get them to end. We looked at economic structures, political power, war economies, role of ethnicity, governance models. It goes on and on and on. We'd come up with terms that made things more complicated, like political economies and rent seekers. Through all of that analysis, very rarely, if ever, did anyone bring up the environment. Climate almost never came up. Fast forward now, my job sitting here as the head of USAID's Bureau for Conflict Prevention and Stabilization, I look at conflict all over the world every day. There's armed conflict, there's transnational organized crime, there's illicit trafficking, there's violent extremism, there's increasing authoritarianism, there's high rates of interpersonal and community violence. It goes on, it goes on, it goes on. Now, all of these collective types of violence may expand or decrease over time, but they're ever present. What has changed for someone like me in a policy role in Washington is a growing acceptance that environmental pressures or changes affect conflict. In recent years, it seems every brief I get when someone informs me about a conflict, environmental factors come up. This is a marked but welcome shift in the last 20 years. Not because these are new factors, but because now we're finally recognizing them for what they are. A recent example is last week, the military mutiny in Burkina Faso. A team from my bureau was on the ground already analyzing the conflict. And when I got my first brief back on, okay, what's going on? Issues such as decreasing agricultural production, forced migrations, soil degradation, all those revealed the role that the environment is playing in the complex crisis that's playing out there right now, just as a recent example. So we clearly now see the relationship between efforts to promote peace and the effects of the environment when we assess the risk or realities of conflict. Within USAID and within the US government, there's a confluence of several factors I'd like to share. First, President Biden has put climate change at the top of his agenda, and that USAID is not an exception to that. We at AID are using the Biden-Harris administration's focus on climate change and on conflict to integrate those issues into our policies and strategies. You'll see that in the US strategy to prevent conflict and promote stability, the forthcoming USAID climate strategy, the global food security strategy, and more. Now, these strategies say a lot of stuff, but what we're trying to get at is that in these documents, we're aligning state fragility, conflict, and climate change, and coming up with ways to improve the systems and the institutions most important to addressing these challenges. That includes peace building and security-oriented institutions. When combined, these strategies will emphasize both the ways in which climate change might exacerbate the conflict and violence, while also advancing and advocating for development programs and humanitarian responses that are attuned to the combined dynamics of conflict and environmental stressors. Now, simultaneously, USAID has grown into more of a national security role compared to previous decades. With this administration, USAID has been elevated and now sits on our National Security Council, where we have a leadership role on climate security issues. My relatively new bureau, which is dedicated to working to prevent conflict, is for the first time now, USAID has an actual thing that is dedicated to peace building, and the efforts aren't buried under humanitarian work and democracy work. So elsewhere, the United States government is changing too. Historically, we have treated environmental security primarily as a hard security issue, focused on geostrategic, operational, and tactical environments, with significant implications for US national security and defense. We were looking at things like competition in the Arctic or climate change that might mean what it means for energy dependencies. But when we start to open up the aperture and conceive of these issues beyond traditional security concerns, environmental security includes a much broader array of issues. Environmental contributors to conflict, environmental impacts of conflict, just what is the environmental interplay with peace building? Some of these issues have direct implications for American foreign policy and security considerations. You asked, why are we involved? That's why we're involved. Now, taken together, the broader conception of what environmental security means, tied together with USAID as part of the broader national security apparatus, now makes USAID's work much more important when considering the links between conflict, security, and the environment. Now, environmental security is central. It's a central challenge for peace builders and security actors alike. I'll put all of that in the positive column, call it progress. We're now more aware of the links between environmental factors and conflict. We've moved beyond only seeing security and environmental issues linked when they affect defense matters. But while all that sounds optimistic, I'm troubled by a few things that I want to share too. One, environmental stressors are only going to get worse. At the same time, in several parts of the world, West Africa, just an example, conflict is proliferating and it's growing. The combination of environmental stress and conflict is a deadly cocktail. We know that social and physical systems that enable resilience are degraded by conflict. Rapid, severe, or unsustainable environmental shocks increase conflict risk. We can see how this can spiral. It's not theoretical. Studies from the World Bank, studies from University of Notre Dame show the vast majority of countries most vulnerable to climate change are also plagued by armed conflict. I'm sure that's new to me. You probably all knew that. Much like other things in crisis, climatic shocks and environmental change are most acutely felt by those who are already experiencing other vulnerabilities. Women, the poorest of us in a society. Now, as I conclude, I will raise the most important question. What do we do from here? In these contexts, we cannot divorce peace building from environmental issues. For someone like me sitting here within a large international donor organization, that is clear. We have known for some time that for peace to hold, women must be present and part of the solution. What are we doing to apply that lesson we've all learned to issues of environment and conflict? The same can be said for the next generation in these countries. A generation that inspires hope by seeing the real consequences of environmental degradation and climate change. They know what will happen to them. How do we harness that energy, the energy of the youth? And what trade-offs are we willing to accept? Like the need for mine minerals necessary for renewable energy, while also knowing the role resource extraction can play in conflict settings. Now, I'll end with a call for help. Environmental peace building is an integrative agenda. None of us, not the practitioners, not the academics, not the policymakers, none of us can tackle these problems independently. We need your help to advance an integrated approach to environmental security. Now, how are we going to manage these very real risks? How do we prevent conflict where these environmental stressors are compounding the causes of violence? And lastly, what risks are we not willing to take? I always preach to just about anyone that will listen that in the peace building sphere, we, donors and others, have to take risks. So I also need your help in identifying where should we be taking more risks collectively. While there's a lot to discuss, you're probably going to cut me off in a minute, and I know the most valuable resource is time. So I just want to thank you again, and please help us as donors. Hold us accountable, but let us know what more can we be doing to be effective and make tangible progress. Congratulations on the seminar, on the conference, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Rob. You stuck to time pretty well. I'm not going to lie. Beyond sticking to time, though, you provided a really excellent segue into our panel discussion, which is all about the promise of environmental peace building. And I hope that we can try to provide a little can get a little bit further in that debate, I guess I can say. There's so much to dig into around this conversation and around this topic. So again, our sort of guiding question today is going to be, what is the promise of environmental peace building? And we'll move into a bit of a panel discussion now. And first, we'll hear from Dr. Erica Weinthal. She is a professor of environmental policy and public policy at the Nicholas School of the Environment at Duke University. She specializes in global environmental politics and on environmental peace building with an emphasis on water and energy. And she's also a founding member of the Environmental Peacebuilding Association and serves as the vice president. So she also is a professor and may unfortunately have to leave as soon as our panel concludes, which is why I've asked her to speak first. But Erica, can you give us a sense of timeline to try to actually maybe get some answers to Rob's questions, and he'll come back at the end of the panel. Where was the field of environmental peacebuilding 10 years ago, even 3 years ago at the conference, and where are we now? What has gotten us here?
Thank you, Annika. It's wonderful to see so many people joining the plenary. This is just tremendous and really exciting. And thank you, Rob, for those introductory remarks. They really set the stage nicely for what I have to say, which I will try to keep brief. And Annika, I know you asked me to reflect on 10 years, 3 years, but when I think about environmental peace building, I actually go back to where Rob started, with this notion of environmental security, and that this is a field in some ways that is about 30 years old, but was really atomized at the time and disjointed. That there were people working on different parts of what we would now call environmental peace building, but no one really had the language or grammar to integrate all the issues that we now bring together in a way that USAID is trying, and other organizations such as UN Environment has done in the past, and the Environmental Peacebuilding Association. You know, we had works that will be discussed at the conference, such as Ken Konka and Jeff DeBelco's book on environmental peacemaking. We had meetings, you know, with within the US government, globally, you know, trying to think about linkages between environment, natural resources, and conflict, but there was no concerted effort until probably, you know, the 2000s, where you started having work being undertaken by UN Environment, bringing people together to really put together policy guidance notes to try to understand the linkages between natural resources and conflict and peace building. But then there was a huge push to create the evidence base, to really generate lessons learned, what we know about these linkages and relationships throughout the conflict cycle, the role of the environment, natural resources, and you know, as drivers of conflict, helping to fuel conflict, but then as opportunities to build peace and sustain peace in the post-conflict phase. And I would direct, you know, those who are attending today to look at the Environmental Peacebuilding website, environmentalpeacebuilding.org, where we highlight, you know, there's 6 edited volumes that came out that really created this initial evidence base of, you know, the relationship between water, land, extractive resources, and post-conflict peace building. There's been a bigger push to create a community of practice, to create a MOOC, to share lessons. And I think, you know, where we are today is having these conversations where you have policymakers talking to practitioners, talking to academics, talking to students, and really continuing to, you know, push generating, you know, evidence, and being able to now really evaluate what works and what doesn't work. And, you know, lastly, I want to say where we're going, which is really exciting, is that, and I'm just going to do a plug for different panels that are going to be, that people can attend today, you know, new fields and people pushing the field even broader. You know, there will be panels on decolonization and environmental peace building. That was something that was never discussed 10, 15 years ago. So the field continues to grow. And I think this is a really exciting time. And I hope everyone will stay tuned throughout the, you know, the meeting. So I will stop there.
Thanks, Erica. It is helpful to kind of get that sense of time and root it in place, and that this isn't sort of just a happenstance gathering of 297 people on Zoom. This is really sort of a community of practice in the making. Our next panelist has also been around these topics for a while. I'm coming to you, Celia Halley. Celia is a program manager with the UN Environment Program based in Geneva. Currently, she leads the UNEP, European Union Climate Change and Security Partnership, which is working to develop integrated responses to climate-related security risks at country level and advising policy developments at a global level. So you joined UNEP in 2009, right? And you've held many roles within the organization. So kind of building on Erica's contribution, you've been in this field for a while from a practitioner standpoint. Can you tell us, are we moving forward? What progress are we making then as a field? Where are we going?
Thanks so much, Annika, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to you all, depending on where you're joining us from around the globe. It is really exciting to be at the start of this conference that's been long in coming, and I join others in regretting that we're not meeting in person here in Geneva, but so happy to be part of this online. So are we moving forward? Yes, I mean, undeniably so. It'd be hard to look at the last, the last few years, the last decade or so, and argue that there hasn't been significant progress. I mean, of course, there are aspects to discuss, to critique, and we'll be doing that this week. There is, probably an over focus on risk as opposed to a focus on opportunity. There are concerns around risks of securitizing climate change and the environment. But really, if you look at the last 3 to 4 years alone, there's been a terrific acceleration in the recognition and inclusion of environmental peace building considerations and approaches in policymaking at all levels and in concrete action on the ground. I mean, from the UN perspective, I'm sure many of you know that there are 13 UN Security Council resolutions now that include language on addressing environment and climate-related security risks in the mandates of UN political missions and UN peacekeeping operations. The UN Security Council, and this would have been unheard of a few years ago, debated climate change 4 times in 2021, last year alone. And although it was vetoed by a permanent member, the last attempt at a thematic resolution on climate change and security just this past December generated the second highest number of co-sponsors. 125 countries signed on as sponsors to this resolution. That was the second highest number in the Council's history. Regional organizations from the African Union to the Pacific Islands Forum, the European Union, of course, have recognized climate and environmental degradation as major risks for global peace and security in the 21st century. And national policies, we heard that from Rob as well, are being developed that reflect this growing understanding of how environment, climate, conflict, and peace are fundamentally interconnected and interdependent. As a practitioner, what I really find most encouraging is the acceleration of efforts to address these issues on the ground, efforts that move now well beyond the identification of risks and towards realizing this promise of environmental peace building in fragile and conflict-affected contexts. Many agencies, from humanitarian organizations to peacekeeping operations and others, have established dedicated programs now to better integrate climate and environmental considerations into their work. Environmental and climate advisors are being deployed to UN peacekeeping and political missions across the globe, not only to help identify the risks, but again, to help those missions act on them. We have tools to fill some of the gaps in data and knowledge. Just a couple of hours ago, we launched Strata, which is the first open source platform on climate and environmental security. And most importantly, we have examples of successful projects and initiatives on the ground that have demonstrated ways to build resilience through peace-positive adaptation and natural resource management approaches. These are programs and projects by the UN, by international NGOs, but by also, importantly, local and community-based organizations that are emerging in the literature and that we can build on. And then finally, there's a lot of donor interests. We have multilateral funds such as the UN Peacebuilding Fund now that have prioritized climate change as one of their main programming priorities. The UN Peacebuilding Fund over the last 3 years alone has spent $63 million in 20 conflict-affected and fragile states. That's a very, very significant development. So yeah, overall, I see huge cause for optimism in the field. I mean, are there gaps? Of course, but I think more importantly, there are exponentially growing challenges to be met. Right now, we have a situation in which the peace and security community arguably has come much further in integrating climate and environmental considerations than the environment and climate community has come in ensuring that its efforts are systematically conflict sensitive, let alone peace positive. And this is obviously very, very key because we know that a number of the interventions and investments that are needed to adapt to climate change can trigger conflict. Think, for example, of interventions on a watershed, interventions upstream that could have major impacts for communities downstream. But also, and Rob alluded to this, we all know that decarbonization and the impacts of the energy transition, or rather the major risks that will be driven by the demand for critical materials that power this transition, really demands a paradigm shift in how we think and act about these issues. We need to be thinking about cascading risks, to borrow a term from our partners at Adelphi and Chatham House, cascading across sectors and regions and at different scales. And we need to be thinking of addressing this from a cross-sectoral perspective. So going much further than the peace and security fields, environment and security fields, but also integrating trade policy, economic policy, and development. So those are some of the really important issues that I look forward to hearing more about during this conference. There will be a number of opportunities this year, as we all know, to kind of start that transition. Stockholm Plus 50 is one of these. But yeah, I look forward to hearing more about all of that in the coming week. Thanks again.
Thanks, Celia. And I see there are some questions coming in through the Q&A function. So I just encourage our panelists, if you see a question in there, feel free to type an answer out. We may not have time to answer them vocally. So I want to turn to you, Julia. Julia Goricho is a Colombian anthropologist and program coordinator at the Blue Action Fund. And I want to talk a little bit about where conservation and biodiversity sit here. So you hold a PhD in environmental governance on conservation, armed conflict, and peace building. And you have more than 15 years of experience on biodiversity conservation, environmental governance and rights, and conflict-sensitive conservation. You'll see a link, everyone, in the chat, and that's to a podcast that you collaborated in on your previous capacity at WWF, together with Conservation International, the Peace Nexus Foundation, and the IUCN. So, Julia, the conservation community is not new to environmental peace building and to these topics, but we're still trying to build those pathways of connection that so far that Rob has spoken about, Erica has spoken about, Celia has spoken about, between these silos. So we have peace, conflict, conservation, environment, climate change, etc. How is our work to collaborate going? How do you see it from your perspective in the conservation field?
Well, thank you, Annika, and hello everyone from Berlin. Very happy to be here, and thank you to the organizers to bring the community again and gave us the opportunity to inspire one another. So yeah, regarding the question on conservation, Annika, as you mentioned, this is environmental peace building is not new to the conservation community. And especially because this two-sided link that has been discussed today about the role of nature in conflict, but also the other side of it, what is the impact of conflict on nature, but in our case, on the conservation activities that we implement. And for me, as a Colombian working on these issues, this link has been clear that if we want to protect the most amazing places in the world that we have in Colombia and we have in many places, we need to recognize that they have been experienced and they are in settings where conflict and violence is very present. And I think that we are still trying to bring these communities of conservation and peace building together, but here and in the association, I have found great colleagues and we share this question of how can we protect these amazing ecosystems, but also contribute to promoting peace. And with that, I want to highlight three of the most important issues. I think we are giving it to this to answering this question. And the first one is that conservation is very important to carry on in these regions. Of course, and regions affected by armed conflict. Of course, giving priority to safety and to the protection of environmental defenders, many times local communities, but also the park rangers and people working in protected areas. And this is one of the major recommendations that comes out of the IUCN report that was published last year on conservation and conflict. And the second one is, if we take into account that conservation happens in places of and regions of armed conflict, it is very important for the conservation community to design and implement conservation strategies with conflict sensitivity lenses, aimed at not only doing not harm, but also finding ways to address the root causes of the conflicts, by providing, for example, and this is something I have seen in many cases, spaces for dialogue between different stakeholders to promote the peaceful resolution of conflicts. And this, in my experience, is the most important tool we have as the conservation community to contribute, of course, to peace building. And this also pass, and this I'm seeing this in this community, to shifting the understanding of the conservation practice. And by that, that means that conservation is not only about managing nature and the natural side of it, but we also need to recognize conservation as a highly political process that many times entails the negotiation of different stakeholders and their needs and interests on nature. And if we do that, then of course, and this is the last point I'm seeing in this community, is that we are, as a community, adopting a new approach to conservation, which is what I call inclusive conservation, which I think is essential for the conservation community to embrace, because we have we need to make a priority not only to conserve nature, but also to promote inclusive decision-making, social equity, and promote the rights of local communities regarding natural resource uses. So bringing it up, coming back to your question, and this is the answer I have found, the answers I have found to this question with the exchanges of this community. We have an Environmental Peacebuilding Association, and I'm sure we will have plenty of panels and opportunities in this conference to look at those issues. Looking forward to that.
Thank you so much, Julia. And we have so many conversations around conservation and biodiversity. And I was also happy to see such a rich conversation on the topic at the World Conservation Congress this past September in Marseille. Another sort of community within this greater ecosystem, we can say, is around water. So I want to come to you, Christian. Christian Berthaud is the Director of Education and Knowledge Component of the Geneva Water Hub. He is an expert in water governance and policy and focuses on transboundary rivers, institutional adaptation, the water, food, energy ecosystem nexus, and the science policy interface. He also co-leads the UNESCO chair in hydropolitics at UNIGE, which is the University of Geneva here. So Christian, water cooperation has also long been an urgent need. It's also not new, but now it seems not only is the urgency growing, but also momentum within the field. So can you tell us a little bit about what you see as the vision for water cooperation and how we might get there?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you, Annika, and hello, everyone. And well, first of all, many thanks for your kind invitation. With my colleagues from the Geneva Water Hub, we're really looking forward to the conference and like to take this opportunity to also congratulate the whole team that contributed to set up such a wonderful program, I have to say. Then to come back to your question related to indeed growing urgency and the topic of water cooperation. Well, indeed, as you all know, climate changes manifest itself primarily through changes in the water flows. And as a result, the competition and tensions around water that are by essence already important are growing fast. So there is therefore certainly a need for promoting and reminding the role of water as an entry point for cooperation. Actually, if you have a look in the last decades, many different colleagues and organizations have greatly contributed to this field, showing the advantages of water cooperation, but also its complexity by combining both quantitative and qualitative analysis. And during those years, we have also seen strong legal frameworks that have been developed. For instance, the UNEC Water Convention, which is based here in Geneva, frameworks that became more than simple legal instruments and that contributed to establish a true community of practices around water cooperation. So looking ahead, I indeed believe that there's a momentum going on. This area of work developed strongly with new actors that emerged in the last few years, new initiatives that focus on water cooperation dynamics, and that also critically discuss sometimes too simple messages related to water and conflicts using evidences and scientific research. The topic is more and more on the agenda, and as an illustration of that, you will see quite a number of sessions actually that are dedicated to this topic during the conference. We also witness kind of a changes at the policy level, including notably, as you all know, a specific SDG target on water cooperation, the publication of the report of the Global High-Level Panel on Water in Peace in 2017, and also, last but not least, an upcoming World Water Forum for which the theme has been framed around this specific topic of water cooperation. I believe that ongoing momentum also shows an evolution on how the question is discussed and put forward. And this has already been said by other speakers this afternoon, and notably by Erika. In fact, many initiatives that contribute to the field today tend to operate at the heart of the science policy interface, sometimes jointly developed by academic organizations and public authorities. This is, for instance, our case at the Geneva Water Hub, a center that has been jointly launched by the University of Geneva and the Swiss Development and Cooperation Agency. You can see similar setups that have been implemented in the last few years in different regions of the world. And here in Geneva, we believe that such configuration can actually contribute to provide an enhanced understanding of water cooperation complexity, going beyond state-to-state interactions only. We also believe that this anchoring at the science policy interface can contribute to promote actively the role of water as a lever for cooperation and to support policy processes with evidence-based perspective. So there's a great number of initiatives out there, and this is actually a good news, considering the magnitude of challenges ahead. Work is needed on every facet of water cooperation, considering notably the triple nexus of development, peace, and humanitarian action. Three topics that certainly entail high stakes, high complexity, and they need both the long-term involvement of scholars and also of public authorities. So this was some thought on my side, and I give the floor back to you, Annika. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And there's even an upcoming Science Diplomacy Week that will take place in May in Geneva this upcoming year, which is that will be an interesting moment to see that science policy interface come together. Thank you so much, Christian. Rob, I'd like to come back to you now. We're going to put you on the spot, and I'm curious, now that you've had the chance to listen to some of the different perspectives within the field and hear the sort of overwhelmingly, well, I wouldn't say only positive, but a positive and promising sort of vision of environmental peace building. I'm curious to hear a little more about how you see the role of development within this sort of growth momentum and promise.
Well, thank you. And I got to say, it's fun being a part of this exciting community of practice, and it sounds like the way that it's growing. A few comments. Here I am talking about risk, and I was greatly corrected by Celia. Stop talking about risk and let's look at opportunity. This is a group that seems pretty damn optimistic, looking right in the face of some of the greatest challenges of our time. So I would ask you or urge you to try to keep the momentum with optimism and hope, because when we really look at how hard, I mean, hearing from each of the other wonderful people on the panel, hearing about what other things you'll all be talking about, I spent a lot of time on complexity theory and systems theory. And if ever there was a complex problem, we talk about intersectionality now, right now a lot. I see the question in the chat about the challenge of getting focus and energy and resources on conservation in a place like Somalia, because there's so many other priorities. I'm a generalist, Many of you, academics particularly, are by nature very, very specific in what you do, and that's important. You're scientists. You have to define exactly what we're talking about. A challenge for all of us, including development practitioners, is how do we tease through all that science and try to work in a specific, I mean, the question is, do we focus on conservation here? Do we focus on peace building? Do we focus on the environment? In a place like Somalia, what are we going to focus on first? Because we don't have ultimate resources. Now, I've always believed that a Swiss Army knife is rarely the best tool to get a job done. It does too many things, but you need it sometimes. The challenge for us is prioritization, all of us. And which one are we focusing on? Water, Christian? Or are we going to focus on conservation, Julia? I loved the line that, well, some of Julia, what you were saying, my team speaks a lot. And within this agency, we're trying to get everyone in my agency to be conflict sensitive. Now, I've opened up my eyeballs to, I have to get much more climate sensitive, much more environmental sensitive. And for those that criticize large conferences, for those that wonder, why do we all get together and talk to each other? If it helps any of you, I had to get really smart on stuff I was not smart on because of this. You have opened up my aperture. When a staff member of mine said that, you know, rare earths are going to be the conflict diamonds of our generation, I was like, wait, what are you talking about? I had not even thought about that. What do you do when you want everyone to use more solar panels, but then you find out who's being forced to make those solar panels? Wow, these are hard decisions. These are really hard decisions. And how do we prioritize those things? The only way we're going to do it is by having all these communities come together and intersect, which is what peace building is, right? So how do you maintain focus on so many things at once that are so interrelated? That is the challenge. And I'm sure all of you get this and deal with it every day. That's why I'm so happy to see so many people excited and positive and optimistic, because there's no time to be anything else, but there's a lot of work to be done. So keep up the conversation with those of us in government. Disagree with us when we should be disagreed with. Understand we're just trying to make tough choices too. But do not give up on us, and keep governments involved and educated and active. And maybe next time we can do this in Geneva.
That was the original goal, but alas, here we are on Zoom. Thank you so much, Rob. I want to invite all of you panelists to stick around. I'll try to do one more lightning round at the end. But it is an interesting question that you bring up of what do we do when questions of securitization, for example, is such a frequent debate and conversation within our field. How do we reconcile healthily engaging security actors without sort of favoring securitization? These are sort of these seemingly unsolvable or irreconcilable differences. And I think it makes kind of a perfect transition to the next part of our program today, which is about innovations in environmental peacebuilding and launching a white paper on the future of environmental peacebuilding with a 50-entry compendium that puts forward conflicting visions, exactly as you say. So we'll transition into this next bit, but as I said, I invite you speakers to stick around a bit. But above all, thank you so much for coming and giving your expertise to this session, but also to our community as a whole. As we move into this next bit, to kick us off, I'm really glad to be able to introduce Ollie Brown. Ollie wears many hats. He's been working at the nexus of security, natural resources, and climate change for the past 17 years. He is an associate fellow with Chatham House. He is also with the Geneva Center for Security Policy. He's had extensive experience working in the UN over the years, and there's a lot to dig into in his bio link in the chat. I've specifically gotten to know Ollie over the past year as he and his team at Alp Analytica, Juliana and Paige, have joined us as the writers and editors of this white paper project, which holds that complexity and this ecosystem, right? I couldn't be more excited for this 2-year labor to finally launch. So Ollie, I'm going to turn over to you. Can you tell us, what is the white paper? Why does it matter? Why are we talking about it here? And maybe even how can someone get involved?
Great stuff. Look, thank you, Annika. Thank you so much for the introduction. It is such a pleasure to be launching this piece today. I have a short presentation which I will show at the same time that gives you a bit of a flavor of what we've been doing and hopefully gives you a sense of some of the beautiful artwork that has been associated with this as well. So just checking that you can see the screen there. Is that okay? Very good. Okay, well, look, it's a real pleasure to launch this that is trying to, I guess, respond to a lot of the questions, the points that Rob made about where do we go from here? You know, there's this huge progress, as Celia was saying, but what is a potential way forward for this environmental peace building community? So what is it? Why are we launching this exercise now? And it's a recognition, I guess, that you know, we're in the middle of or the beginnings, I guess, of a climate crisis. At the same time, we are experiencing some of the highest numbers of conflict in the last 30 or so years. And we have all of these pressing challenges at the same time over the last 30 years, as Erica was saying. We've sort of realized that the environment, peace and security are intimately linked. And a sort of recognition of that has meant that it's sort of arrived as an issue. There's this sense of momentum. And it's been tremendously successful, but also, I think if we're frank, it's failed to deliver on some of its promises. There's been a lot of rhetoric, but it hasn't necessarily matched that at all times. And also, a lot of the peace building or the environmental peace building community has been too full of people like me sitting in places in Europe, you know, armchair, diagnosing problems elsewhere in the world. And there's been this lack of geographic sectoral diversity. And so what we were trying to do at this landmark year, I guess, 50 years since what we could call the birth of the modern environmental movement, since the first Stockholm Conference in 1972, was to take stock, to be really honest about where there are problems, where there are challenges, to be optimistic about the opportunities, and to start thinking about an agenda of how we can take this complex, diverse, exciting area forward. And it's been an exercise in two parts. So it's made up of a white paper, which is trying to be a short, digestible, accessible piece that sort of brings together a coherent message on the future of the field that we take to Stockholm Plus 50 in June to say, well, look, there's this amazing field. It has all of these opportunities. Here's where we think it could go in future. And that draws off a compendium of 50 different articles with big ideas, real life experiences of engaging in environmental peace building from around the world. And it's been a massive exercise. A lot of people who are involved in writing these pieces are on the call today. We had 154 authors from more than 80 organizations and more than 30 countries. So it's been an exercise in really bringing together different people with different backgrounds, different expertise, different languages, different perspectives, to try and come up with a set of different ideas around what the future of environmental peace building is. And it's deliberately, the ethos of this project has been one of collaboration. We've been encouraging all of the compendium pieces as much as possible to be written by 2 or more people from different organizations, from different sectors, from academia, civil society, the private sector, government, local organizations, and so on. And as Annika was saying, these articles don't all agree with each other. They have completely different views at some points, but that's fine. There are no absolute truths. We recognize that actually having a diversity of opinions, a diversity of voices in this field is really important if we're going to build a kind of dynamic, resilient approach to taking advantage of these opportunities. So we're sort of calling it our ecosystem of different voices for peace, because both reflecting the fact that different opinions are really important if we're going to avoid kind of path dependent thinking and avoid getting trapped in that. So out of that sort of massive exercise, we tried to distill what we thought were some of the coherent, the messages that came together, and to provide a platform for these different voices. And then that has been sort of extensively reviewed and developed with multiple consultations in French and Spanish and English with over 150 reviewers. So this is very much a product of a big group exercise that has come together, and we've called it an agenda because it's not a single it's a single agenda. It's not a single future, and it's backed up and illustrated by the art that is at the intersection of environment and peace building. And we wanted to use this as an opportunity to exhibit the art of people who are working at this intersection. Art plays a very powerful way of expressing ideas that words sometimes can't express. And Lynn Finnegan, the art director on this project, has done an amazing job of bringing in artists from around the world who are working in this area to help sort of give more emotion and sense and empathy, I guess, to the issues we're talking about. So we have artists from Iraq, from Hawaii, from all over, from Kenya, whose art is included in the white paper and the compendium. And we really wanted to, again, make perhaps an uncommon link that we don't often make in this field between policy and art as a way of sharing messages. So to finish off, where does this leave us? We wanted to try and come back with some ideas of where can this environmental peace building field go in future. And we've called this an agenda for environmental peace building. It's not the agenda. It's one set of ideas for ways we can collectively take this forward. And it has 8 points. The first is that I think collectively we need to kind of recognize that we need to, as a community, move towards being more inclusive, being more self-aware, think about who's involved, who's empowered in this community. Secondly, we need to recognize that some of the most successful projects are those that are happening, or those successful interventions are those that are happening at a community level, far from the hallways of power, and those kind of bottom-up community-based approaches are perhaps where some of the real opportunities lie. Thirdly, that we need to kind of collectively advocate for political leadership, the sort of things that Rob was talking about that provides the space to experiment, to invest, to move this forward, provides the entry points for environmental peace building. And linked to that we also need to make sure that environment and peace are embedded in the DNA of policy frameworks that set the stage for the United Nations or US aid or government action or whatever it might be. And so that again will help to ensure that environmental peace building has the ability to kind of capitalize on some of these opportunities. The fifth one is to push for the implementation of binding frameworks that can hold states, armed groups, companies to account for environmental damage, to anticipate, to use sort of big data and artificial intelligence, Earth observation to anticipate tensions before they cause conflict, do what we're doing today and over the course of this conference to kind of continue to build and share the evidence base for environmental peace building. And then both as conservationists or environmentalists to work in a peace positive way, moving across, building bridges across these different silos of expertise, and for peace builders to work in a nature positive way. So that's our sort of 8 points of the agenda for environmental peace building. And what's next? As Annika was saying, we have these milestones this year in terms of UNEA, Stockholm Plus 50. We're going to be investing in a kind of dissemination campaign to keep kind of communications around this going to over the next few months. But then in the near term, and I'll finish off with this, on Friday, we will be having a discussion with many of the contributors to the compendium to kind of dig into these ideas a bit more. So if you can, please do join us 11 o'clock in Central European time, and we'll have some time to kind of carry on this discussion there. But with that, let me turn back to you, Annika.
Thank you so much, Ollie. I really appreciate it. And I also just want to say a special thanks to our art director, Lynn Finnegan, for her incredible work to design and create this stunning product you all see now. I put a link in the chat to follow along with the art. I know we've just been getting flooded responses and what an important reminder of how art allows us to engage differently with our work. I also want to say thank you to the Peace Nexus Foundation, Hesta, Daniela, Eloise, for your tremendous support, as well as Hannah from IUCN, Achim and Rainer from their days with my own organization, GPP, and Carl for all of your service on the steering committee. I am one sort of proud, gushing community facilitator today, and I look forward to seeing many of you on Friday to discuss the project further. I'll make sure I put a link in the chat. But wait, there's more. We simply cannot conclude this session without bringing Carl Bruchbach to the digital stage to share more about the projects and innovations you'll experience over the next few days at the conference. So Carl, this conference has so much to offer. We are all using Control F to find sessions on the agenda. Can you share more with us about the other initiatives and tools to look out for in the next 3.5 days?
Absolutely. And I will highlight, we have two of the more exciting sessions, the more dynamic sessions following this right now. The first will be the poster session, which actually we're going to need to start about 10-15 minutes late because we are using the same platform as we are now. So people will have a 10-minute break, but these are chances to come and wander virtually from room to room. It's next generation Zoom stuff. It's really cool. Really encourage you to do it, and it will be the most dynamic opportunities you will have. So immediately following this, there's the poster session and art exhibition, and following that will be the social hour. One thing that I did want to highlight, though, is this is an online conference, as many others. We have plenaries, we have roundtables, we have poster sessions, but there are also a range of very concrete initiatives. And these are highlighted throughout the agenda as with the Road to Geneva icon. And I just wanted to briefly flag these because this goes beyond talking. It's really concrete initiatives that are meant to influence how do we understand environmental peace building? How do we act on it? How do we shape our practice? And the first one Ollie highlighted just now is the white paper on the future of environmental peace building. Earlier this morning, this morning our time, afternoon Geneva time, UNEP launched Strata, the Earth Stress Monitor. And this is an online mapping tool that I really encourage you to check it out. We are launching a series of artistic efforts within the rubric of creative accounts. We are proud of our inaugural Environmental Peace Building Arts Fellow, Jason Houston, and he has contributed both a gallery to the photographic exhibition and helped to curate it along with Becca and Annika. And we're in the process of launching an arts subsite, which has a repository, online galleries, and artist directory. Encourage you to check that out. The toolkit monitoring and evaluation of environmental peace building is supported by USIP and under development by the Environmental Peacebuilding Association's Monitoring and Evaluation Interest Group and ELI in partnership with UNEP. It's really meant to provide concrete guidance for practitioners on how they can better monitor, evaluate, and learn from environmental peacebuilding initiatives. We launched a Young Rapporteurs program, and again, Becca and Annika, kudos on fantastic program there, which really mentored and brought together more than 100 young rapporteurs from 40 countries. And we launched and piloted a young professionals mentorship initiative, which has a year-round, year-long mentorship between a senior figure in environmental peace building and either a young professional or a student. We are in the process of pulling together a flagship report on frontier technologies for environmental peace building. This is led by UNEP and the NPAC's Frontier Technology Interest Group, structured around different phases and contributions of technologies to environmental peace building. This is expected to be launched on the road from Geneva. So after the conference is done, we will have a couple of events to share thinking. This will be from Geneva to Stockholm. And the Education Interest Group has undertaken an effort to collect experiences and approaches for incorporating education on environmental peace building, particularly into university programs. And IUCN, Conservation International, Peace Nexus, and WWF produced a 7-episode podcast on Voices for Peace and Conservation, which has some fantastic insights. I would commend this to your attention. And with that, I'll close the comments on the initiatives, but the point here is this is really much more than a talk fest. You know, we are sharing, we are learning, but there's also a lot of very concrete actions that will leave the field in a better place than we were at the start of the conference. Thank you.
What a great way to put that too. There's that sort of element of service through it all, and that's something I really appreciate about this community. We have a few minutes, and I would love to, everyone who's spoken and shared, I'd love to invite you, if we can, for just a little bit of a lightning round. I'm curious about what you are most looking forward to this week, really concretely. We've talked what the promise, the sort of wider promise of environmental peace building is, but to be really concrete, is there a session? Is there a project? Is there a speaker or a community that you're really excited to hear from? We're just going to make this kind of a very quick round. And so I'll just go back through in the same order that we went for the panel. So Erica, can I start with you? What are you looking forward to this week?
Okay, and then I'm going to jump off, unfortunately, to get to class. I mean, I'm just looking forward to really hearing what, you know, this next generation of scholars are working on, you know, and where the research is going. You know, what are the critical questions that people are talking about? You know, a lot of it is it's much more nuanced than in the past, where it's less about trying to draw these very sharp general causal claims, and it's informed by, you know, intense field work, you know, lived experiences. So I'm really, you know, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Thank you. And also that panel on Friday on decolonization, I remember that too. Let's see then, I think Celia, we come to you. What are you looking forward to?
Thanks, Annika. I mean, there's so much to go through. This agenda is truly, truly amazing. I mean, I think for me, the most interesting panels will be those that are grappling with those intractable issues that we were talking about, and that, you know, Rob left us with. I mean, there are two events in particular. There's one on blind spots in environmental security and environmental peace building tomorrow that I'm really looking forward to. And then there's a couple of events, one on decarbonization and peace in fragile states that I think will speak to some of the issues we were discussing earlier, as well as one on minerals as well, and some of the risks linked to you know, the energy transition's thirst for new minerals that I particularly look forward to. But just as Erica has said, I mainly look forward to seeing really you know, new faces and a new generation of both scholars and practitioners from all around the world, and to having them fully included in this community and hearing their voices. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Julia, to you.
Well, I'm going to be focusing on conservation. So I'm looking forward, there's at least 15 panels or presentations really discussing the issues on conservation and peace building. So two to highlight from my side. One is the lessons learned on conflict sensitivity, that is going to be where we can hear the experience of Conservation International as one of the major NGOs, and conflict sensitivity and the GEF program. I'm really looking forward, that's tomorrow. And on Friday, we put together a panel called Conservation in Violent Environments, where I'm going to discuss with great colleagues from different universities what are the challenges of conservation and the strategies we need to take on that. Plus, looking forward to everyone to hear our wonderful podcast, Voices and Peace of Conservation, that really has great insights on these topics.
Yes, and maybe Shayla, we can post the podcast link in the chat again, as long as we just brought it up. Cool. Christian, I think you're next.
Well, plenty of great sessions on the program, and I will join also Celia about this willingness to discover new perspective and new insight on current challenges. And there's known to be those intergenerational look that are quite of interest, known to be the one on the transboundary water cooperation and hydro diplomacy that will take on the 2nd of February, with a brand new generation of scholars that will that contribute and will contribute further to the field in upcoming years.
Fantastic, thank you. And Rob?
Well, I'm upset that I'm not going to be able to join any of these sessions. And Celia took my fire. I was going to put a plug in for the blind spots one, but she beat me to it, and the green minerals one. I just watching Ollie go through. I like the "and" agenda, not the agenda, but there's so much there that intersects. This is all about intersections, right? So much that intersects with something we're trying to do globally under Samantha Powers, our administrator, is focus on localization. Find people where they are, meet them where they are, work with them in trust, and be so sensitive to the power dynamics. We stumble into these problem sets and make things worse half the time. That's one. And talking about breaking down silos, I am a broken record on this. We talk about breaking down silos, and then we run right back into our silos, and we address problems not by defining the problem, but with the sector that we're working in. USAID is terrible at this. We have all this money that's for special stuff. And so if I have education money, guess what? I'm going to give you an education solution, regardless if that's the problem. And how do we move the needle? How do you as a community move the needle to get governments to be more holistic and more systemic in these systemic problems that are not, it's complex. It's not complicated. You can't just break it down. So I envy all of you who are going to spend time talking about this stuff for the next days, and just want to encourage you to keep up your optimism and keep being exciting and hold governments accountable, ours included. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rob. Then thanks for being here too. You've given us our challenge, right? You've given us our agenda as a community, and we really appreciate that. And I will say, just to plug, almost all of the sessions will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. Not every single one, but many of them will, as well as translations into French and Spanish for most of the sessions where we do have interpretation. So just that we will hopefully be able to go back and engage with some of this content. I think I may give the NPACS team a heart attack if I go too over in time. So Ali and Carl, I may skip coming to you as you've already sort of had your chance to plug a specific event. But we've been talking at you for about 90 minutes or so. So I want to get all of you on screen and talking face to face. As Carl said, we'll have a little bit of a 15-minute pause before the poster session. So I'll just take 1 minute to give a couple of concluding announcements and little sort of housekeeping moments. You can still register for that poster session using the link in the chat. We're on Zoom, so every session you'll register for separately. We won't stay in this room, we'll go into a different one. I do just want to say so many scholars have worked incredibly hard over the past few years, and let's please show them some support and join them on Zoom for that session. Then starting in 1.5 hours is the moment I know that many of you have waited for, which is a even less structured online social hour, and we hope to see you there as well. I want to just say thank you to our interpreters today. We've all tried not to speak too fast, but thank you for your work to make this conversation more inclusive. Thank you to our tech hosts, Shayla and Anna, for your work to make this, well, work. And thank you to all of our speakers and panelists for joining this Zoom adventure. I know it is a bit less fun to be doing it on Zoom, but we just really appreciate your time to come here to share your perspectives, to sort of infuse this conference with a sense of optimism and a sense of purpose, as you say, Rob. So thank you so much. But most importantly, audience, there are still 214 of you left, which is a really incredible retention. As I'm going over time, I'm almost done. Thank you for showing up, participating, and being present. We are really a vibrant community of practice, and I'm really looking forward to spending the next 3.5 days with you. Thanks so much. Bye.